This is a presentation of my ogre feastmaster army. The premise behind this is that an ogre tribe swept through the moot and grabbed up a bunch of prisoner halflings to eat, and then decided that they cooked so well that they would use them as noblars instead. I use my halflings for both this army and my halfling army, so mine aren't color coordinated. There's someone else in my area, the LA area, that actually has his halflings and ogres for his feastmaster army color coordinated, so they actually look better than mine. When I'm using my halflings for my ogre army, I put them in groups of 10 because they're really cheap. They're 25 points, and if you put 4 or 5 units of them out there, you can place them first and watch where the other guy places his troops. You can also put trappers in there, and which will cause them to create a dangerous train check for whatever enemy attacks them, which is good for hurting enemy cavalry as they come in. I call my ogres my NATO force, my multinational force, because they're from so many different painters and they're so many different colors that they're just multinational force that came together as the same tribe. These are my older ogres. Most of them are from the 80s, some of them from the 90s. I really like the old metal ones. They have a lot of character to them. Most of my figures are Games Workshop, but as you can see, the middle one in there is not. Some of them aren't. Here's a picture of my iron guts. They're very important to the army. Here's a smaller group of iron guts that a friend of mine painted. I guess I could call them Chrissy's crew. That'll annoy him. You can see that ogres are really fun to paint. You can see how he's made these striped pants that really make this a beautiful unit. I don't need this many ledge belchers, but they're pretty cool looking, and they just seem to find their way into my army. I love metal miniatures, but these miniatures here and the gorgers are one of the kind of miniatures that actually need to be done in fine cast, and have been, of course, but as metal miniatures are just too heavy and they don't stay together well unless you pin the figures. This is a great alternative figure for the Yetis. This is a Dark Eldar 40k Clawed Fiend, and I actually think this looks as cooler than the Yetis, and if I had to do it over again, I would buy these instead. I like playing large games like 8,000 points, and gorgers are very important for large games. I have 2 more that are getting fixed, so you need quite a bit of them. Man-eaters are the funnest unit to buy as a collector because there's all kinds of interesting figures for it, especially if you get miniatures from the 80s when GW put a lot of character into their... This is a confrontation figure. I just had to have this because it was so goofy looking. A local painter made this miniature. I think it's made out of just a regular ogre. You can see how much detail he put into it, how nice it looks. I can't remember what company these were made from, but these are fantastic looking miniatures. I love these ones. Here's another couple from a different company. Here's an example of some of the older GW miniatures. I think the one on the left is from the 80s, and the one from the right is from the 90s. These ones are a friend did. Basically, you can see that you can take a lot of the bits and make your man-eaters out of regular ogres, and they look great. Here's my Saber Tusks. I kind of wanted these guys to look like have the same coloring as cougars. These guys can have all kinds of purposes. One is cheap pieces to deploy so you can see where your enemy's deploying, knocking out war machines, and using as kind of light cavalry too. Here are my tyrants. If you're playing a big game like 8,000 points, sometimes people agree to having a couple of generals just for leadership purposes. Here are my butchers. You need, for big games, you need lots of butchers. And you can see one of the guys on the right is actually a conversion. Ogres are great for making conversions. There's lots of little bits that you can put on them, and they're easy to do because they're so large. Here are my Rhinox Riders. I haven't started the Mornfang herd. That'll be later, I guess. Here's my Thunder Tusk. I don't use him too much. In big point games like 8,000 points, they die the first turn. They just suck up too many cannonballs because of the large base. Yes, I do need these 4 iron blasters. In the big games, you use 1 or 2 at the beginning of the first couple turns, so you got to have something. You can see a couple scrap launchers in there also. That concludes my ogre army. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out some of my other armies.